the end of season 2, you had just finished playing Captain for a little while. How is that going to affect you moving into the season and the way you're kind of looking at your role in Starfleet?
Right. Well, I think her goal is still to become Captain. It's like her ambition. It is to her what being an actor was for me, which is a lifelong goal and a dream that you're like constantly building towards. And so she's definitely going to pursue that. And within that, how that sort of connects to her personal life is going to become more and more complicated and difficult, which is actually pretty fun for me as an actor.
How did that experience influence you as an actor as well? Because your character started off as like this like happy-go-lucky, like super into like all the sciences and everything, and then you kind of turned into like a hard ass with the with that captain. So how has that changed how you are approaching your character?
As an actor? Well, it taught me a lot about her. Like, it taught me that she had that in her, and well, maybe being quirky and like silly and weird is like more of a comfortable place for me, and like being an authority figure and someone who's like strong and kind of fearless is like something I can do, but maybe a little more scary. That journey is very much like Tilly's journey, even having to portray Killy, and so we really like met up at that point, actor and character, and it's really informed like who she is. Like she can be strong, like really strong, and I think we see that in the first episode she ever did, episode 3 of her season, when she like sets her sights on the Klingon. You know, I think that's going to become more and more a part of her identity. She's going to let that in more and more, and that's fun for me as an actor because it has a nice balance.
At the end of season 1, your character had just gone through an incredible experience with the spore drive, and obviously you also lost your partner. How does that affect you and your decisions going forward into season 2 with as far as like your career in Starfleet?
No, I mean, that's one of the wonderful things that I'm getting to, that I'm given by the writers, is the chance to really deal with all that stuff, deal with the aftermath, because there wasn't any time or space to do it in season 1. You know, the most I really got to do with that little moment with Tyler in the hallway and then holding the medal, but not a chance to kind of process and deal. So that question about what is my future in Starfleet is a big question that is getting explored through the course of the season.
And I know that you're a big gamer. You're also a huge nerd. There's a lot of Star Trek games that are out right now. Star Trek Online. I just got Star Trek Adversaries, the card game. What are you playing right now? Are you playing any of the Star Trek games?
I haven't played that. I started to play Is it called Timelines? Timelines. But my iPad was acting up with it. So So I have to go back to that. Most recently, I've finally played Witcher 3. Because I knew how big it was, and but I'm hoping that I can be a part of, maybe like I'm like campaigning to be inside the games. Oh, so hopefully that'll happen. Yeah, that's a little bit of a dream of mine. At
the end of last season, you were kind of living impaired, maybe.
Living impaired, breath impaired.
Right. And at the very end, we saw a little spore that came down and landed on a shoulder, yes. So the current rumors are that could be you. Do you have any insight on that?
I know that I have enjoyed reading all of the theories through this last year. I have been entertained beyond belief, I have to tell you. And no one's quite hit it.
With that in mind, what from this upcoming season that you are able to talk about, since obviously we can't know about that, are you excited about?
I mean, I'm excited about people seeing what we've already done, which is the return of Culber and how that happens, and because it has been a lot of fun. I'm not kidding. It really has been a lot of fun to hear people's theories and how they thought it was going to happen, and I think the way it happens is very satisfying, and we get to learn a lot about who this person is and who these two people are to each other, and I think this season is going to be about deepening this relationship, and a lot of it's going to be surprising, and I think that's good.
At the end of last season, you kind of found yourself in an interesting place between Starfleet and the Klingon Empire, and you kind of chose to go over and be with the Klingons. In your human form, how is that going to affect how you're approaching and dealing with them now?
That's what's interesting about his character. He's part of two families, but he's also on the fringes of both of them. So whenever he goes over to the Klingons, he's not part of it. Whenever he goes over to Starfleet, he's not fully part of it, so he's an outsider in every sense, and that's one, he loses power in that sense, so he has to give over a certain amount of power when he goes to the Klingons, because he originally was very in power at the start of the season 1. So that's interesting to play out, because he still has to tell people what to do, but they don't want to be told what to do. So that's always interesting to watch. That creates conflict. So yeah.
And what about your relationship with Burnham? Like, is that going to be explored further this season, or are you kind of like on your own new route now?
That's always there. That's always going to be there. There's always an imaginary elastic band connecting them. He always wants to see her, as you would anyone you sort of have feelings for. He interweaves. They will see each other again.
And since L'Rell is the one that kind of did this to you, and you're now like helping her rebuild the Empire, how does that affect your relationship with her as the person who kind of put you through like torture?
Well, there's the essence of Vogt, which is still there. That's what keeps going. There's also the essence of he's confused, because that will keep always affecting him, because Vogt was the original sort of Leia. So there's a very confused sort of pain there, because it's like, you did this to me, but I also once loved you. So it's very strange, the whole thing.
And out of anything that you're actually able to talk about that's coming up in the season, what is your favorite moment that's coming up, or what are you really excited for the fans to be talking about?
It's hard to say without giving. There's a very in-depth episode where me and L'Rell explore a lot of issues, and we really get down to the nitty-gritty, and it gets emotional and it gets tough. I can't wait for people to see that episode.
Your character went through a lot last season, and how is your relationship with everyone that kind of like now you're friends with or you're enemies with? How's that all affected your character into going into this new season?
Oh my goodness, in so many ways, in every way possible. You know, I've really set upon a path that is brand new to me, that is completely foreign to me. You know, I made the ultimate mistake, committed mutiny, lost everything, got sentenced to life in prison, was in solitary confinement, came back, got reinstated. It was this, you know, helped in the war that I felt like I had such a big hand in starting. And so seeing that play out was really inspiring. Seeing that play out in the scripts that I was given was really inspiring for me as an actor. Extremely challenging, but I thought it was an arc that I could really believe in. And you know, I had to find myself in the people around me, and I think that's what we're all doing on this show, is finding ourselves through each other and realizing that I can't act alone. Just because I have a Vulcan upbringing, that doesn't mean I know what's right every moment, and I can't do something that I think is best for everyone without everyone being on board with it. That's not the way to be a leader. That's not the way to be in Starfleet. So I had to learn that, and I learned that through everyone, and now we're going to be dealing with everything that comes from that. So it's exciting.
Alex, going into this new season, you've been kind of involved with Star Trek from the beginning, but now you've taken over control as showrunner. How has your role changed from the beginning of season 1, where it was Brian Fuller and then Aaron and Gretchen, and now you've kind of moved in? How are you differing from the way they were running things previously?
Well, yeah, I've been there since the beginning, and I feel like my job and responsibility is to remain at 30,000 feet a lot of the time to make sure that the macro movements of the show feel right. Obviously, the big difference is now running the show, you're involved in a lot of the small ones too, and I've been doing a lot of writing, and we brought in some new writers as well as having our original staff. But, you know, it's being in the room every day, being in post every day, dealing with production every day. It's a very full-time job.
And going into this new season, obviously we heard during the press conference that there's going to be a little bit more humor, that since they're not in war, that really opens everything up. What kind of like exploration are we looking at getting into in this new season?
Well, what's great is we're going to go home to Saru's planet. In the second episode, missions, we're looking for signals. We end up going to a place we haven't been before. We just have an opportunity to explore off-ship a lot more, which is nice, and in a way where you can really stop down and appreciate that culture.
Were you a fan growing up as a kid? Like, was this something that you watched, or are you like completely new to this genre?
Oh yeah, no, I grew up a fan. The original series started rolling on syndication. Like 19 80 or 81 in my area, so I saw every episode of the original multiple times. This was before we had cable, so you know, I was watching reruns a lot, and it was our go-to make-believe game. Was to pull up chairs to the fireplace. For some reason, would act as the bridge, and we would fight over who got to be Kirk and Spock, and never had an Uhura because no girls would play with us.
So coming in and getting to take on the role of Christopher Pike, the original captain of the Enterprise before Kirk, like when you got the call, you were like, hey, so this is what we want you for. How did you approach that?
Well, first of all, I had to audition, and I was happy to do so, because you know, the last thing you want is to end up finding out you were miscast. To find out that I got it was surreal. Even more surreal walking onto the set and sitting in the captain's chair. It was just, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. You know, if you could go back and tell that 8-year-old boy that he was going to one day sit in that chair, he would tell you, you're nuts.